Russia is desperate for friends. They have no friends. I'm very skeptical of what value such an exercise is. If they've got troops available to participate in an exercise or ships while they're getting crushed in Ukraine, it's a very interesting choice of priorities.
The time now is 5:36, so time to invite you into our daily briefing room, where one of our leading tactical and strategic minds with years of experience high in the military hierarchy shares thoughts on the war in Ukraine. We're joined today by Lieutenant General Ben Hodges, former commander of US Army forces in Europe and Pershing Chair in Strategic Studies at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Good afternoon to you, Ben.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Let me just start with this. Just a headline I was looking at just coming into the studio. How Russia are preparing to engage in military exercises with China and India too. Indian troops involved. Now, tell me, what are your thoughts on that? Was there reason strategically for any concern about that?
Well, it's interesting, of course. Russia is desperate for friends. They have no friends. I'm very skeptical of what value such an exercise is. If they've got troops available to participate in an exercise or ships while they're getting crushed in Ukraine, it's a very interesting choice of priorities. And when it comes to India, I think India is in a difficult place. Obviously, the United States and UK are working closely with India when it comes to China. So this is an interesting mix of nations, if you will.
Yeah, I would clearly want to watch, as our strategic thinkers will be watching very, very closely. Now, on the ground in Ukraine, every day that passes now, we see news of another out attack of some kind in Crimea, in the territory of Crimea, against Russian forces or Russian-backed forces and installations. Do you get the impression that these events, these operations, are significantly weakening Russia's military capability in this war?
Well, for sure, they're doing two or three things. Number one, they're demonstrating that the Russians do not have the ability to protect their own logistical infrastructure, their rear area, if you will. And this is part of what's contributing to the exhaustion of Russia's logistics system. Every day, almost, we see an ammunition storage site that's gone up in smoke. The Russians are having to move these things further and further away from the guns, which means there's an extra burden on their limited number of trucks that have to bring ammunition forward. So there's a real vulnerability that's been exposed here. And what's extra cool about it is that they're not exactly sure how it's happening. Is it sabotage? Is it special forces conducting direct action? Are they being hit by long-range precision fires? So this is also an interesting part of it.
Do you share the concern? This came up in a conversation yesterday when I was speaking to a former British military commander. Do you share the concern that, given that this is an attack in Crimea, which of course Ukraine and supporters of Ukraine see as Ukrainian, Russia sees it otherwise, and the concern was that they may react in a very, very strong way simply because they would regard this as an attack on Russian territory, could resort to the use of weapons of mass destruction, even nuclear weapons in some way or another. Do you share that concern, Ben?
Absolutely not. It's nobody in the world except maybe Venezuela, North Korea, and Syria acknowledges Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea. Not even Belarus acknowledges it. So we should never act as if somehow Russia has any sort of claim to it. And interestingly, Crimea has been hit twice now, hard in the last within just the last few days. And I noted with some interest and amusement at the tens of thousands of Russian vacationers sitting there in Crimea, how they jammed that Kerch Bridge trying to get the heck out of there.
Mm.
So it's clear that they realize they don't belong there. They don't seem willing to actually fight for it. I mean, none of them were seen heading for the nearest Russian army base saying, hey, I want to help defend the motherland here. They were getting out of there as fast as they could. So the Russians don't have anything else with which they can escalate. I mean, the only other thing they can do is use a nuclear weapon. And I seriously doubt, I can't totally dismiss it, but I seriously doubt that they are willing to use a nuclear weapon anywhere inside Ukraine, to include if Crimea is attacked.
And these attacks in Crimea, they can have the effect, the logistical impacts of these attacks in Crimea can do quite a lot to weaken Russia's effort in the south of the country. Isn't that right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yesterday, the attack on this ammunition storage area was, it also severely damaged a critical railroad that connects Crimea to the south. And so, and the Russians depend on railroads to move the heavy bulk things like ammunition. And I am struck by the total lack of discipline and professionalism with how they even handle ammunition. I mean, we see pictures all the time of ammunition that's just stacked on the side like boxes of fruit. And the British Army, the US Army, any other professional army would never store ammunition like that, exactly for the reason to be able to contain it if there is an accident or if something
Mm,
happens.
mm,
So I think the worst job in the Russian army must be ammo handler.
right. And speaking of unintended consequences, the UN Secretary General is visiting President Zelensky to discuss the possibility of some nuclear risk, which is a continual concern, isn't it? In terms of nuclear installation.
Are you talking about in Zaporizhzhia?
Indeed, indeed, that nuclear power plant, or the possibility of something developing from a strike there or near there.
Yeah, the entire world needs to be condemning Russia for what they're doing to put at risk this nuclear power plant. This is 100% the doing of the Russians. They've got more than 500 soldiers all around there. They refuse to allow the International Atomic Energy Agency to send observers there just to make sure that the reactors are still safe and functioning properly. I think this is an attempt to actually, it's a little bit of nuclear blackmail because all of us are talking about it. But what I think they're really after is to redirect all the electricity that this power plant generates towards Crimea. A large part of Ukraine gets its electricity from this power plant. And I think the Russians would like to be able to redirect that. This is a part of the pattern of what they do. But I mean, everybody, including China, Iran, any other country, not just those of us in the West, should care about it. Because if there is a problem, if there is something that releases contaminated radiation, multiple countries will be paying for it, just like what happened after Chernobyl.
All right, good to get your thoughts today. Thank you for joining us, Ben, in our briefing room today.